Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hi, welcome back to our discussion of Hayavadana. In fact, we have stopped at a point where things get really very interesting. In fact, the major philosophical debates that the play contains within its creative space unfold here. So, you will have to stay tuned to what we are going to speak next. All right. In the previous class, we discussed how there is some kind of we discussed the main plot. Actually, Act 1 more or less deals with the main plot, and of course, it's only in the second act. It's a 2-act play, of course. It's not a conventional 5-act drama. It's a 2-act play. So, in the second act, we find all the subplots beautifully merging and thereby giving a beautiful an aesthetic touch to the various issues that otherwise look like different issues in the play. You find a kind of a philosophical union of all the critical debates that the play unfolds in its opening pages. Okay, so we have here Kali, and in fact Kali has already blessed life to these two characters here. So now we have two characters who don't know who they are, technically speaking. Right now you have, imagine, when you say a human identity, what do we mean by that? The sense of I. What is my identity? My is the proverbial I here. How does a human being derive their identity? Is it by their head? Is it by their body, or is it by their critical reasoning? Who am I? In fact, that's a question that has haunted humanity probably ever since humanity was created, right? It's a kind of a perennial question. Who am I, right? Who am I? Well, of course, you have a couple of philosophers going on and trying to reductively answer it. Therefore, you have Descartes calling it I think, therefore I am. My existence is because of my critical ability, because of my ability to think. Then later you have someone else, an existentialist, almost reversing the order and say that I am, therefore I think. Your ability to think comes from the fact that you exist, something like that. And later you also know how in the 20th century, or maybe in the typically a postmodernist would say, well, it's neither because you think or you are. He says I eat, therefore I am, thereby drawing a kind of a humorous conclusion to the entire philosophical debate of who I am and how do I derive my identity. Well, here the question of identity is confused all the more because you have Devadatta, who's when you say Devadatta, do you mean the head of Devadatta and the body of Kapila, or what is it? So these are the questions, right? So for time being, how does an actor, how does a director, or how does a dramatist enact it on the stage? Well, I said that the playwright and of course the dramatist, they wonderfully make use of masks. In fact, there is a detailed stage instruction where Carnard himself says that they make use of masks. They make use of masks. So now you have the head, that means the mask of Kapila on Devadatta's body, and you have the mask of Devadatta on Kapila's body. And now for time being they are happy because now they have come back to life, and Padmini too is more than happy, right? Now soon the merriment is slightly turned into a lot of commotion and confusion. That's why the play makes use of what a good makes no more tricks. Is this one that, or that one this? Ho ho. It's a kind of Kali's cosmic play, something like that. And again, very pertinently, the playwright inserts questions such as, not directly of course, remember, through insinuations, through indirect allusions. So, is it the subconscious desire of Padmini that made her switch the heads, or is it just night and there was a lot of commotion and confusion, and maybe in that anxiety, in that elevated state, she just mixed up for a genuine cause. So, this is something that you too can think about if or when you have read the play, all right. So, please think about those things. Now, what has happened, of course, now both of them start claiming Padmini, because remember that kind of a love triangle has always been there. For want of better term, let me use that filmy phrase, love triangle, that Now, Kapila, when I say Kapila, the head, let us traditionally go by somebody who has Kapila's head claims that Padmini belongs to them, because the Kapila's head is joined to Devadatta's body, right. Obviously, according to the logic, it is the body of the Devadatta that has lived with Padmini and enjoyed all the carnal pleasures and all that. Therefore, it is Kapila's head and Devadatta's body that where Padmini should go. Now, here is Devadatta's head attached to Kapila's body. Of course, it has found a newfound vigor and all that, because it is a muscular body. It says, no, absolutely not, come on, what rubbish is this, Padmini should come with me, because in a human being, head is very, very important, right. Head is very, very important. Therefore, if I have Devadatta's head, that means I am Devadatta, irrespective of whose body I have. People are identified by their head, not by their body. That is the logic that now the other guy is proposing. Now, where in all this merriment, of course, where does Padmini's allegiance lie? Because if there is one truly confused and who has an equal stake in both of them, it is Padmini. And Padmini very gleefully agrees with that person who has Devadatta's head and Kapila's body. Of course, she has she too has her say, to say the least, and of course, if you think she has her vested say, well, so be it. Of course, that is left to your critical eye, that is left to your critical eye. It all depends on how you look at it. Finally, some kind of solution comes. They are unable to decide, they want to fight among themselves. What do they do? How do they resolve it? They go to a sage, a learned sage, and then ask him, and that sage makes a remark. He says that head is Shira is considered the Shrestha, the head is the prominent organ of the body. Therefore, head, you have to go by the identity of the head. So, accordingly, Padmini goes with whoever she always wanted, that means she goes with Devadatta's head that has of course Kapila's body. So, for time being, what we can do in order to avoid all the confusion, we can call we can go by this solution. When I say Devadatta, it means now Devadatta's head and Kapila's body. When I say Kapila, it means Kapila's head and Devadatta's body, all right. Please remember that critical point. Now, of course, this is how it happens. Now, Kapila is doubly dejected. Now, imagine he has the strength of Kapila was his physique. Remember, he was a wrestler. He has defeated many wrestlers from across the globe very easily in the fighting ring. Now, he has lost that. Added to that, he has also lost Padmini, because it is the body of the Devadatta which is attached to Kapila's head. Therefore, the body feels it has been denied what was rightfully its. Therefore, Kapila is doubly denied, and Devadatta and Padmini, it is a kind of they are absolutely happy. Devadatta probably wanted that, because he has always envied Kapila's physique. Therefore, when Kapila's physique comes to him, his happiness no bounds, because now by head he is as intelligent and as scholarly and as philosophical and as poetic as he already was. Added to that, he has now a muscular body, he has now a strong physique, and he becomes some kind of an ideal figure, at least ideal according to Padmini. Now, both of them go back and start living a happy life. Now, do you think it is a kind of a happy ending? what happens there. Now remember, well, when we say memory, memory is not, it's not just the head that has memory. In fact, research suggests that, you know, memory, even every part of your body has its own memory. You know, every cells have their own storehouses of memory. Now Kapila, with the Devadatta's body, it's yearning because it has had all the pleasures, it has enjoyed, you know, certain comforts. Now how does it overnight forget the bliss of the conjugal bliss that it has enjoyed, right? So what does Kapila do? The new Kapila, you know, now he goes into the forest and starts, you know, he curses his fate. Now he leaves his city and starts living in a forest. Now here on the other hand, what happens? Devadatta has come back, you know, they are living a wonderful happy life. So in the meanwhile, of course, we have heard that before the journey began, before, you know, both of and remember right in the very beginning, before they went to the Ujjain fair, we hear that you know, Padmini was carrying, and now of course when the second act begins and all that, we hear that she is already blessed with a son, you know. So they are living a kind of a perfect family life. Now there are other two interesting characters here. They are dolls, you know, they are dolls. Imagine, technically speaking, dolls play the role of a stage prop, you know, property, you know, but here more than a property, doll acts as an active character. In fact, doll is a character here. Now recall magic realism. So maybe he has also infused elements of magic realism into this play, playwright Girish Karnad. Therefore, these dolls have the ability to speak among themselves. Of course, maybe when a human being comes, they stop their speaking conversations, but when nobody is around, they start conversing with each other. That's a very beautiful technique that you know, the playwright makes use of. And these dolls have an extraordinary ability to get under the skin of somebody and know actually what they are thinking. So that's how they know that, you know, Padmini is more than happy, because now she got always what she wanted. Now gradually the play doesn't end there. Remember, you know, you get a muscular body not overnight, or if you don't you know, maintain that body by properly exercising or by, you know, nourishing it the way it has to be nourished, well, obviously even the muscular body becomes a frail body. On the other hand, somebody with a frail body with a lot of willpower, if they start working out and all that, they too can develop it. So this is what happens. Gradually our hero Devadatta, you know, who is very happy with Kapila's body, now gradually begins losing you know, that body, and probably over a couple of years. Now when the kid is maybe about 4 or 5 years, in a matter of 3-4 years, he loses Kapila's physique and all that, because he hasn't nourished it that way, and therefore now Kapila, Devadatta is as he was, the same frail body, lean body and all that. So all this we get to know using the dolls, and the dolls comment on the new state of mind of Devadatta, the new state of mind of you know, Padmini and all that. That's a very interesting technique that our playwright makes use of here. Okay. Now how does the plot come a full circle? In fact, the plot comes a full circle because now let's see what happens to Kapila. Kapila now, who has been, you know, who has driven himself to the forest, now starts working out. In fact, he works out with a lot of vigor and vengeance, because now, that's the only thing he knew, right? That's the only thing he knew right from the beginning. Now as a result of that, in 4 years, Kapila's head, which had you know, Devadatta's body, has now become muscular. And now, like Kapila was before, he is now, but still he is you know, still of course angry. He still feels let down. Entire cosmic injustice has happened to him, but still he keeps you know, working his way up. He keeps working his way up, things like that. But remember, his body is unable to forget all the, you know, the life that it led with Padmini. Therefore it has its own tensions, it has its own you know, conflicts. Remember, you know, the play profoundly enacts this you know, the perennial the dual tension between the mind and the body. it's a kind of a perennial problem, right? Is it the mind over the body or the body over the mind, which is predominant? The play, enacts it in a very creative way. So these are the things that are happening. Well, he is now living a life of repression, but of course he has overcome the initial bitterness to a certain extent, and he has acquired the body. Now what is happening here? Now let's go ahead and see. Now Padmini has grown. Now she is slightly not unhappy, because now she can't be happy. Now in the pretext of sending, in the pretext of acquiring new dolls, because the old dolls that were there, in the house, now they have grown old. Now she throws them to the street and sends Devadatta to Ujjain again. She says, now go immediately, we need a fresh pair of dolls. Of course, dolls are really, they have their own feelings. Remember, I said they to act like human beings. They are aghast at her behavior. Probably they might even think on themselves that maybe like they are discarding, like Padmini is discarding us, she is now discarding, Devadatta too, because they can sense what happens in the future. So foreshadowing, the technique of foreshadowing, remember. So now Devadatta goes to fetch a new pair of dolls, and the journey to Ujjain is a long one. It might take 3-4 days. In the meanwhile, the moment Devadatta has left there, Padmini has packed her bags, and of course now she goes into the forest searching for Kapila. Why does she do that? These are the questions better left to the critical imagination of the reader and the audience. So now she goes there, and of course she remembers. Now she says that, Kapila, how are you, and all that. Now of course, now she says that the child, along with the child, she has gone to the middle of the forest. Now she offers the child to Kapila and says, this is your child. Remember, it was this body that has resulted in the creation of this particular child, and all that. You may find her logic a convenient logic. In fact, a couple of critics have also called her, a femme fatale. That's a character, stock character in many of the Western fiction and as well as the Eastern fiction, femme fatale, wherein women are projected as symbolic versions of vampire. They suck the blood of the female. They suck the blood of the male and all that. It's a kind of a stock character, and of course many critics have gone into describing her as that, but that need not be the case. That absolutely need not be the case. But in order to understand whether she is an example of femme fatale, you can as well read the play and then decide for yourself. Okay. So now of course here Kapila, the moment he sees Padmini, again the body is overcome with all the desires. Though initially he refuses her, he is bitter with her, somehow they make way, and of course now they start living together. They make love, and they start living together. So this is how the plot comes a full circle. So now by the time our guy Devadatta returns from Ujjain, he realizes that Padmini has left his home along with the child. So he can sense what might have happened. He goes into the forest and finds out that Padmini is living with Kapila, and they are again very furious. But now they want to, rather than giving into that moment's frenzy, now they discuss how to resolve this particular issue. It's going to be a perennial problem, right? This is going to be a perennial problem. So now they decide the only way to probably end this impasse, a deadlock, is to fight each other, and probably in the process they know that they would kill each other, something like that. So initially they explore the option of both of them living with Padmini, but later they realize it's absolutely improbable and it may not be practical and all that. Therefore they decide to fight themselves, and in the process both of them kill each other. In the fight that follows, both of them fight each other and kill each other, and at the end, about towards the tad end of the second act, we have Padmini widowed once again, right? Because now she keeps wondering that this is her, this is how Padmini responds. You forgave each other, I understand that, but again both of you left me out. So now she has been forsaken again. She doesn't know what to do. Of course, now look at the kind of cosmic irony. She thinks of Mother Kali and says that, "Oh, mother of all nature, you must have you must have played your joke even now." Because when other women pray, when their husband dies, when a woman's husband dies, the woman can always pray that, at least in the next life, make him my husband, make me his wife, something like that. But now Kali hasn't even given that option to this woman, because now she doesn't know what to ask, because technically speaking, she has lived with 4 different guys, Kapila, and then and then of course Devadatta, and then later Devadatta with Kapila's body, and then Kapila with Devadatta's body. Now she doesn't know who to ask. Therefore she almost says it's like she's been played a kind of a cruel joke. But of course now she realizes that she cannot have everything she wants in life, because always remember, happiness, it's always said, in pursuit of happiness we can never attain pure happiness. Probably that's why the American Constitution talks of in pursuit of happiness, something like that. So it's always a chase, it's an eternal chase, maybe. So she realizes that, and that's when she and Bhagavata appears. Now she hands over to one of the characters one of the minor actors who plays the role of forest dweller. She hands over her son, and now she says she is going to immolate herself. Now there are 2 bodies, probably she will immolate herself and become a sati, something like that. Of course it may sound slightly a kind of a misogynistic ending and all that, because the concept of sati is coming again, but she thinks well, whether she ends her life by stabbing herself or immolating herself, at the end of the day she finds that death is the only something that can bring her a sense of closure. Therefore handing over the child to the actor with an instruction that the child should be passed on to Devadatta's father, the scholar who is there in Dharmapura. She dies. This is what happens actually in the play. This is how the play ends. Now of course the rishi who had resolved this particular crisis, he had said that knowledge gives rise to forgiveness, right? Well, that is unfortunately that may not happen, because knowledge may not really give rise to forgiveness. Maybe we need something more than knowledge to attain a state of forgiveness, or to forgive the wrong done to us, as well as forgive ourselves or forgive others. And unfortunately he didn't have any inkling of the death. Okay, so this is the play for us. And now how does the playwright unite the subplot of Hayavadana? In fact, Hayavadana now in the meanwhile has gone to the Kali temple, and now Kali has granted him his wish. Now before, because of a twist in the way he uttered his wish, now he wanted to remember he had a human body and a horse's head. All that he wanted was a human body with a human head. Now in his eagerness to ask, we don't know how he asked it or how Kali understood it. Finally when Kali grants him his wish, he has become a complete horse. He wanted completion. So maybe it's a cosmic way of saying, or a divine way of saying, that a sense of completeness can come not in the human form, but maybe in some other animal form. Maybe that's the reason why now he is completely horse throughout. But the horse is still the horse can still speak. Now when the play ends, again, like when the play begins on the stage we have Bhagavata. Now when the play ends we have Bhagavata, and this horse has come, the same actor has come back. Now again they don't know how to resolve, and the boy has also come. Now the boy has come because now the boy has to be handed over to the grandfather, right? Now Bhagavata is thinking of it, but now the boy looking at Hayavadana, now it starts laughing, because until that point of time the boy hasn't spoken. Now in the merriment that happens, the boy begins laughing and looking at the boy laugh. Now, the horse is also still incomplete, remember, because the neighing that comes natural to the horse has been denied to it. It's still speaking the language of human beings. Now, looking at the merriment of the kid, of course, when the horse is galloping here and there out of happiness, you know, it has lost the human voice, and of course, it has acquired the voice of, you know, a complete horse. You know, now it's complete, horse is complete. This is how the play ends. This is how, of course, the playwright brings a closure to, fuses both the subplot and brings in a sort of closure to the entire play. This is the play for us. So, we have discussed various concerns relating to the play, the mind-body duality, and how, you know, there is an eternal quest for happiness, and how when you keep on chasing that, it keeps eluding to us. Does it have any existential purpose? Remember, you know, one of the metaphysical poets asks that probably deliberately, you know, the concept of complete happiness, or the concept of you know, complete perfection is being denied to human beings, because if that is denied to them, probably they would forget human beings. Therefore, constantly there is some kind of, you know, inadequacy has been put into human life, so that out of that inadequacy can push them towards God. So, is it some kind of, you know, cosmic play that is at work here? Why is it that despite a severe longing, despite, you know, an earnest you know, earnestness, why is it that human beings cannot be happy? Why is it that there is sense of, you know, inadequacy in life? Well, the play tries to answer it, but these are, remember, the questions are always larger than the answers that they can get. Therefore, keeping in line with the spirit of the question, which are absolutely you know, cosmic and existential, the play ends with those open-ended questions. All right. So, keep thinking about this. Now, I have a couple of learners who wish to express you know, what they think of the play. Let me call them out and you can listen to them. Okay.
Hello, I am Rifat. So here I am to speak on Hayavadana by Girish Karnad. This is such a wonderful play, isn't it? Given the techniques, the use of dolls, the use of legends and everything, it's just what a drama perhaps expects, you know, in its entirety. It has all the techniques apart from the story. But right now I'll be focusing on this story. So Padmini, we see what ultimately her fate is because of her, just because of her vaulting ambition. We know that no one can be perfect, right? Devduta has got a perfect mind, he is intelligent. On the other hand, his friend Kapila is gifted with a beautiful physique and strength. But she is not content. Padmini, while looking for a match for herself, is not content with either, and she wants both the best mind and the best body. So ultimately we see, you know, she becomes the Troy, you know, who perhaps doesn't bring thousands of sheep and wages a war, but at least she sort of makes the life of two friends completely miserable, isn't it? Just because of her vaulting ambition. And also we see another intricate thing about is that Devduta, when with the transposed head of Devduta and the body of Kapila, he doesn't, when he has that, he has the body which he had envied so long, but he doesn't maintain it, and therefore he sort of loses that physical strength as well. So we get a glimpse that it is be it the intelligence or the physique we want, it can always be cultivated. Nothing is inherent, and we need to, when we are blessed with a particular thing, we should be happy with it and strive to make ourselves better. So these are the few observations I have on the play. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Imon and I am here to speak on Hayavadana by Girish Karnad. So it is a remarkable play by a remarkable playwright, a playwright who kind of grew up along with a newly post-independent country, and he incidentally he was also one of the very few Rhodes Scholars to go to Oxford, and study literature, and then he came back to India, and then he started making plays, and all of his plays reflect this journey of the nation state from and this identity crisis that the people of this nation face, and these were reflected in his plays. And Hayavadana is a very acute and is a very subtle and is a very proper reflection of these different problems and different crises and different complexities and everything. In Hayavadana, through this love triangle between Devdatta and Kapila and Padmini, and through the character of Hayavadana and through the characters of the dolls, he is trying to comment on this theme of wholeness, this obsession with wholeness that kind of pervades throughout the play, and how different and what he tries to say. We talked of during this course in the previous few classes, we talked of texts having implicit meanings and explicit meanings. So the implicit meaning in this course is, and what Girish Karnad tries to comment on, is how just like the nation that he has grew up on, and just like these characters in this plays, they struggle with very various, very diverse characteristics, diverse traits, this struggle between this duality between mind and body. But the key here is to look for a solution in a very acute synthesis between through a kind of a coexistence between these diverse characteristics, and everything in the play goes wrong the moment these disparate characteristics are tried to combined into a very muddled whole. But what he is trying to say, and what the playwright is trying to tell us through this play, is to find a solution through a kind of a coexistence, through a kind of a harmony that embraces these diversity and complexities and everything. Thank you.
Hi everyone, Bidisha here. We are in the presence of an extraordinary play today, and I would also like to talk about the issue of perfection. So, the quest for perfection is inherent in all of us, and perhaps that's all right, but maybe keeping things simpler and easier gets us better sleep at night. That is not an easier feat either, right? The key to understanding the issue of perfection, I guess, is also very cleverly included by Karnad towards the very beginning of the play. So, Ganesha, the very emblem of imperfection, a god with an elephant's head, is invoked as a god of success, victory and perfection. Why is that? Perhaps perfection is always relational, and when we stop comparing, when we just try to evolve and mature as individuals and as a whole with our species, and when we try to coexist with more harmony, that makes all of us a little more closer to happiness. Thank you.
Hi, how exciting were these responses, right? This is probably what an extraordinary work of art would do in you. In fact, it's like letting the bug enter you, and that bug would make you almost speak endlessly, something like that. Now, if the play has really touched you, so probably what you can do is, like my team has expressed their opinion of this particular play, you too can either start writing down your responses to this particular text, and you can upload it in our forum. Or if you are a little more proactive, you can as well respond to it formally using a video. You can shoot yourself and maybe upload it in your Facebook pages, or even on our Facebook page as well. So these are some things that you can do. I'm sure you enjoyed this play. All right. So with this, we have come to almost the end of this class, and of course, just one more class for the completion of this course. We really hope you've been enjoying all these activities, because not just this particular play, the play we discussed earlier, and of course the short stories we discussed before that, and even the poems, lovely poems that we discussed, all of them should, they must really create a kind of an imaginative trigger in you, you know. They have the capacity to do that. All that you have to do is surrender yourself in an open hearted manner, and as long as that happens, you know, you almost see the miracle of creativity unleashing out of you, you know. You would be the first spectator of that. It's a, you know, you would be witnessing the marvel of creativity jumping out of you. All right, let's meet you in the next class, and of course reserve our farewells and feedback in the next class, right? Okay, see you in the next class then.